All right. Jess always tends to give me the time just before lunch, so everybody's fed up and heard enough. So I'll try to be quick and get us to the food. I'm going to be really selfish, and I'm going to talk about what the Human Rights Commission needs in the next 6 months. Okay. Our mandate is domestic. What we want to do is make change here on the ground. So we engage with all these instruments and all these mechanisms to try and achieve that change. But we can't do that without you guys. So we need to know what the issues are. We need to know how to resolve those issues. So if we think about what's happening next year, we've heard that the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination review is coming up. Now that process doesn't have the list of issues prior to reporting that we heard about from the Ministry of Justice. They release what is called a list of themes before the review. And that list of themes is the agenda for the review. So if we don't get your issues on that agenda, they won't be discussed in Geneva. So that list of issues will be released around sort of May, June. So the committee needs to hear your views sort of February, March, April. There is no requirement as to how you put those views forward to the committee. You can send an email saying this is the issue that our community is facing and this is what we think you should be asking the government to do about it, or this is the question you should be asking the government for more information on. So that stage of the process does not have to be an arduous task. When we get to that point next year, we will be going out again and we will be talking to people because the Commission will be engaging ourselves around that list of themes. And we want to be telling the committee what you're telling the committee. We want to make sure that we're representing your issues. It's also really important, my experience with all the committees, is that coordinated submissions, joint submissions, get the most traction. So find those coalitions, we've talked about it already today, but find those common interests, submit together, say the same things. And then it will get onto that list of themes. The review is then happening July, August next year. And the great thing about the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is that their deadline for shadow reports is really close to the review. So some committees have a lag, which means the information can be out of date. With the third committee, the deadline is 5 days before the review. And that's your opportunity to put more information back to the committee on the list of themes that they've released. Again, keep us in the loop. Let us know what you're thinking, what you think the recommendations should be. So when we go across to Geneva and we're sitting there at the examination, we're talking to committee members all the time. And we're feeding them questions to ask the government. So tell us what's going on. Then after the review's finished, we engage with the committee around what the recommendations should be, what the wording should be. And again, we feed that information to them. So we need to really know from the communities, how are you going to fix this problem? You know, what's going to really make a difference so we can get the UN reflecting those recommendations back to the New Zealand government. In terms of actually engaging with the committee, we heard from Claire about her experiences of engaging over Skype and video conference. That is incredibly effective. At the last review, the ICCPR review, I was actually sitting in the room when Claire was up on this massive screen at 1 a.m. back in New Zealand, talking to her submission. But it can actually be even more powerful in some respects than the 2 or 3 minutes you get on the ground in Geneva. So encourage you to really engage in that process, both around the list of themes, but also around the review. If you have any issues organising that, please get in touch with the Commission. Okay? We, in terms of the list of themes, we don't go across to Geneva for that. We will be engaging over video conference. Okay? So if you want that opportunity, talk to us and we can assist in arranging that as well. We can also assist in terms of arranging meetings over in Geneva if there's any issues that you have around getting in touch with the right people and so on. The other review that's coming up is the ISESCA review, as you've heard, and we've talked about the list of issues prior to reporting in that review. Now, it is a new process, this list of issues prior to reporting, and when it was used in the ICCPR, it was telling that the committee would not stray from those list of issues and those questions. So we had a lot of things that came up in between the government's report and the actual review, but the committee wouldn't engage on them. Or if they did ask a question about it for interest, they wouldn't make a recommendation because it wasn't actually captured in that list of issues, which again is the agenda for the review. So in terms of ISESCA, that has come out, but what will be happening next year, later in the year, is the Disability Convention list of issues will be being developed. Okay. And there's lots of crossovers between these conventions. And one thing we're really keen on seeing as a Commission is better coordination, collaboration and consistency between the treaty bodies. So it's no good CERD saying something about inequalities and then 3 months later ISESCA saying something different because they've been given different information. So it's water on stone. The issues cross over the conventions and you can just keep sending the committee the same thing, the different committees. Just change the email address, change the title, send them the same thing and make sure they get the same information. And that's exactly what we do as well. What we're going to say to CERD, we'll be saying to ISESCA, and we'll be saying to the Disability Committee. And if we do that, we build up a body of recommendations which are consistent and then more powerful in terms of making change domestically. I've done a little one page which you probably all picked up on the way in, which talks about CERD and ISESCA in particular. Email contact details for the committee secretariats is on that document. Email them anytime. Okay? They want the information. They're thinking at the moment about, they're the ones who have to write the report. So you have the committee members who sit there and go through the review, ask the questions. It's the secretariat that writes the report. So they want as much information in advance as they can get. So if something's come up, if there's a report that your organisation's released which is relevant, just send it to them in an email. They want that information, they read that information, and that frames the review as well. So don't feel limited by the formal submission timeframes and so on. Build relationships with the committee secretariats, and then that will obviously open doors when you get across there as well. The Commission's here to help at any stage. We can provide advice on drafting submissions. We can help you facilitate workshops with your communities and organisations if that's of use. Just contact details, practical information around engaging with the various bodies at any stage. So please do get in touch if we can help. And that's about all I think I've got to say at the moment, unless anybody's got any questions. Yes.
Could you expand on that, please? Facilitating workshops in the communities, what do you mean?
So if you want to, your community wants to make a submission to CERD, but you don't quite know how and you want some guidance on what issues should be raised, how we might write recommendations, how would we frame this and put it forward to the UN in the most effective way, then we can assist you with that.
Can you give an example of how specific or broad the issues that would typically be brought forward to the HRC would be, and sort of get to remember?
In terms of what the...
So like, I mean, is it a sort of case that someone was talking about before with a human rights violation against the child and the police officer, or is it more broad of unequal health outcomes, you know?
It's both. So the case with the police officer would be used as an example. So the issue might be institutional bias, for example, within the police. And you would use that case study as an example. This is what's actually happening in the community, and then give the committee a solution. So, you know, from our perspective, you need to actually build those relationships at a community level in order to resolve this institutional bias. So you sort of start at the broad, give the examples of what's actually going on the ground so that they can understand that, and then a solution, a recommendation.
So just going on with the, she said, also looking at the paradigm behaviours of both parties, is that what you're saying as well?
Sorry?
Looking at the paradigm behaviour of both parties?
Yeah, that's right. Other questions?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Please get in touch with us. That's the message.
Absolutely.
Please get in touch with the Human Rights Commission. We're here to, as agents, to make this work better for all of us. And now Jessica will guide you through the process for you to meet up in groups to talk about the